Hello everyone, it's Wulf here again. I'm back with another quick tip. Today we're going to talk about the major and minor second. That's right, more intervals. Just going to apologize really quick if the audio is weird this time. I'm trying out a new microphone. I hope it's going to work out alright. So we'll just get right to the point here. A major and a minor second are a whole step and a half step, respectively. So a minor second is if you just play these two notes together. You're thinking like, how do we play those two notes together? They're right next to each other. So we got to figure out how to find the next note on the next string. So we can just figure this out by ear too. Like just listen to this note, then play this string. That's not quite it. So just listen. Oh, that's the same note, right? So we just play that root note along with the minor second that we just found. And you'll notice that's a completely awkward and terrible shape to try to play with your fingers. So we're going to simplify this, kind of like back when we did the diminished triad. We're going to cheat and we're going to use an open string instead, right? So just to demonstrate, there's one shape that's going to work in this one spot, or these few spots. So you go the 4th fret, and the next string is open. It doesn't work on the next one because the B string's tuned a little bit differently. Minor second shapes, you can just visualize them with your root note and this long gap. 1, 2, 3. 3 frets in between. And you know it's obviously the same thing with the major second. If you've seen the rest of these videos by now, you know I'm just going to say to add a half step to the note we just found, and that's going to be our major second, right? And it's a little bit less of a stretch, so it's a little bit more of a comfortable thing to play. Yeah, instead we just do 5th fret and 2nd fret, something like that. And again, it doesn't sound very usable like this. Like, where would you use these sounds in a song, right? So the way this is most often implemented is instead of using the second, you do what's called the 9th. They refer to the exact same note, just an octave higher. Because after our octave, after 8, then all of the intervals start repeating again. So a 9th is just a second, an octave higher than the root note. Just like, say, an 11th is a 4th, but it's an octave higher than the root note. So anytime you see a chord name that has some great big number next to it and you think it's crazy and overwhelmed, like how are you ever going to learn enough music theory to understand all these numbers? Just remember that anything over 8 is a repeat. It's an octave higher. It's an interval that you already know, an octave higher. Usually you find these intervals in these great big chord textures, like your standard 9th chord actually has 5 notes in it. It's an extension of a 7th chord of sorts, so that means there's going to be another 3rd stacked on top of that to make 5 notes total. And that's a lot of thinking. That's a lot more than I want to get into for this video. This video is mostly just about what is a major and minor second, right? So we'll leave all those proper 9th chords for later. So if you've seen any of my previous videos on intervals, you know that I'm just going to find this minor second note or this major second note, and I'm going to figure out where to put that an octave higher and put it into a chord shape that I can play them all at the same time. There's like an alternate way that you can find the octave, so you have a gap of 2 strings in between the root note and the note you're playing. So what I've done is I've just taken my root note here on the 5th fret. I want to do it with a major second in the chord, so there'll be a whole step above, right? So we got to figure out where we're going to play that major second in a higher octave. Here's another way you can find an octave that's different than the one I showed you before. We're going to start here, we're going to skip 2 strings in between. So we're going to be down here on the G string, on the 3rd string. Our major second's up here on the 7th fret. So we're going to go down here on the 4th fret on the G string. You hear that octave relationship there? It's just the same note as going. Just like, how do we find the same note up here? You see how it's all interrelated a little bit? So now we can play our root note at the same time as playing that major second. And then we still have some fingers left over here so we can hit those other notes that make it power chordy. So we can come over here, we can hit the perfect 5th, we can hit the octave. Man, that's kind of awkward, but yeah, it works, right? Sort of an easier fingering for this. You can just bar all the way across 1 fret, and then the 2 strings in the middle, the D and the G, the 3rd and the 4th string, we're going to hit those strings on the 7th. And that's kind of the way that I found to do a good major 2nd sort of sound in an easy movable chord shape. I don't really have one for the minor 2nd. It's not a very usable harmony anyway. It's mostly used when you just want to throw like a bunch of dissonance in there. I've heard metal players call it the terror chord, right? Because it just sounds awful. It sounds just terrible. It sounds like... Yeah, I've heard metal players just use it, just hit that minor 2nd interval, hit that terror chord for just like a certain part in their song, and it works to pretty good effect, but you just gotta be playing one of those kind of genres of music where you're allowed to use a little bit of dissonance, right? Like in a top 40 pop song, I don't think that a minor 2nd has any place there hardly at all. So these major 2nd kind of sounds are really good for, say, like post-rock or jazz and funk. They work well with anything that's kind of heavy, is kind of allowed to have some dissonance and some varied harmonic color to it. That's why they're great for jazz songs. I like to use them as a sort of tonal ambiguity, so I'm trying to avoid implying a direct harmony that's major or minor. So if I want to avoid those consonant sounds in my harmonies, then I'll break out some 2nd chords. Then I'll break out some 6ths. But yeah, if you're just trying to avoid having a very consonant, very predictable sort of harmony to your song, then you want to employ some of these weirder intervals and get some tonal ambiguity going on. You're avoiding what the ear expects to hear. You're sort of tricking the brain and creating a little bit more interest because you're not giving it the sound it expects to hear next. You're not giving it the sounds it expects to hear together. These 2nd intervals are a lot less commonly used, so to our ears it kind of comes as more of a rare treat. Anyway, I don't think I have a lot more to say on this subject today, so we're going to call it right there. This has been Ty Wulf, and I hope this was useful. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments section, and hopefully I'll be back around soon with another video about intervals. You folks stay frosty and have fun out there.